With some of my friends who come to me for help and with whom I keep in touch quite often, we discuss certain things that are hard to grasp right away to some extent. Although in principle anything can be easily understood if it's explained in a clear, good, and accessible way. So what is this thing that I want to tell you about now? Look, events are unfolding. A cascade of events that logically ends with some big bang, an explosion, a boom, a war, or a part of a war of its own. This is a cascade of events that in principle is moving forward logically. Within this cascade of events, there is a certain sequence of movements that is logical and was planned in advance, and it is unfolding in its own course. However, quite suddenly, into this significant event that is just about to happen, something else entirely intervenes, something we absolutely don't see, don't truly feel, and certainly don't fully understand. But it powerfully strikes at the crucial points of the unfolding event, and then, quite abruptly, it starts to noticeably shrink, to truly shrivel up and diminish. In other words, it doesn't happen. Do you see what I mean? Let me move the camera a bit because I think the sun is starting to shine too brightly here. I'm having breakfast, you see, drinking my usual coffee, which, yes, and dates. Right now it's date season. In Africa, it's date season. Yes, dates are in season. And I'm eating dates. They say a few dates a day are very good for you. Oh, come on, how good can they really be? Everything is good for you. Everything that's natural, alive, everything that's close to us, it's all good for you. Any herb, any plant, and any fruit. So for our bodies, for humans, everything is good for us except meat. Meat is our downfall. Meat is... All right, let's move it again. Meat is truly our downfall. Meat is indeed our pain. All of our illnesses come directly from consuming meat. I'll get back to the events. Here are the events. They're supposed to bomb a certain area. It's scheduled, it's underway. But suddenly they just don't bomb it. Why? It's impossible to predict something like that. There's no forecast for that. Only certain people can predict or make it happen. This too, my friends, is a kind of historical move, right? When certain people, now listen, this is the most important part. When certain people who live next to us, on our land, which is not round, does not spin like a ball, but simply lies flat like a dish, and on which we all live. So there are people living right next to us. They are like little nodes in that web, in the matrix, and these nodes are people. In the matrix, there are nodes, people, on whom events are tied. By the power of these people's will, by the power of thought, these events can be prevented with willpower alone, with direction. And usually, this kind of willpower should be good, not negative. And then it happens. These are such interesting things that probably no one talks about because, well, first of all, it's inaccessible, it's not understood. Some people try to talk about this as if it's about gods. Well, you can call it whatever you want, friends, gods, or not gods. Nodes of the matrix. I believe these are like the nodes of the matrix, what the matrix actually stands on. It is tied to these nodes. It's kind of its component. The matrix consists of cells, and inside these cells are these little nodes, these people themselves. By the way, the Masons, as a society, friends are tied to knowledge. Many of them are given knowledge, and these are the kinds of families where such people are born. They keep track of them. That absolutely doesn't mean that these people will be cherished and pampered. No, they cherish and pamper themselves, their own elite, who are like drones. That's their elite. But people like that, they try to push away as far as possible, somewhere deep, hidden out of sight. and not give them a truly good life. On the one hand, they allow them to live. On the other hand, they make sure that life doesn't seem sweet to them. They're always trying something. The sun is quite bright. I just had to stand up because it's hard to talk under the sun. First of all, I can't see myself, and the phone is heating up. What was I going to say? The Masons closely monitor such families. They know these families. Where are they born? Traditionally, they are born into the same families. But, as you know, over 100 years, families can grow into a large swarm. And here, you absolutely need to carefully pick out that very specific larva, that particular individual person who, in actual fact, will ultimately be the single most problematic point. And they are always monitored, and such people are always kept inside. But they must not fall asleep, so they are constantly kept moving, kept on their toes, often in negative thoughts, so that they keep moving, don't die, don't live in bliss, and don't think that everything is fine for them. They are kept on their toes like being poked with a needle in the backside. That's when this entity or this person or this larva, this knot of the matrix starts to move, to jump, to express its emotions. Since our current era is quite a profoundly negative one, having truly come at the very crest of widespread destruction and relentless conquest, the intense emotions that this particular larva needs to express must also, by necessity, be overwhelmingly negative. And here, of course, it's very difficult to resist negative emotions because they're all around you. Your life is shaped that way, but still it's possible. It really is possible. And I appeal to those who accumulate such forces within themselves not to give in too much to the general direction like war or anything else. Don't give in. Of course, the war is going on. It's happening right next to you, but you need to let it pass you by. By no means should you let your mind get stuck in that tar or that dirty swamp with your thoughts, emotions, or mind. And that's difficult too. It's hard not to feel sorry for the people who are dying in the war, for nothing. But is everyone really dying for nothing? A person in this situation needs to think. They have to set some direction for their mental work in order to understand that fundamentally humanity is rotten. Basically, it is doomed to perish. That's why you can't and shouldn't resist this process. But who will take their place? And of course it's a pity, such a large number of people. But that's exactly why they do this to these creatures, these larvae in the cells. The matrix carries out these kinds of procedures, social procedures, when you come to understand that you can't pity people, that all people are S. Well, do you want to object? Go ahead, object, write it down. Of course, not everyone, strictly speaking, but for the most part, if create conditions for people that will somehow bother them, then they will still accept the decision of G and not the decision of the light. You'll see. The world will show you more because it has already begun. Everything is spinning. I am Tanya Karatsuba. Thank you.